percent, and then when you want to draw it, just use the color property instead of the standard way of drawing it, which is color.white. Then we have physics like position, velocity, and acceleration, rotation, and speed, and stuff like that. So this is a pretty very basic way of doing things. Now die time and die percent, those are pretty self-explanatory. How long it takes for the object to die, and how far along is it on the dying process. So 0 is fully alive and 1 is fully dead. So those are the fields and properties. Some of those are public properties, some of those are protected properties, like the color. So let's go on to the initialization methods. And there's only one method in here, and that's just a virtual method to initialize the object. And if the object is not active, set it to active. Now you can override this, and if you do not want this to take care of it, you just remove the base.initialize. So that way this code will never be called. Now the update and draw method, we simply, if it's active, we update the velocity and position by using the standard physics type of updating. Instead of the plus equals acceleration and plus equals velocity, we multiply it by the time. And then if the texture is not equal to null, we update the rectangle by the position X, the position Y, the width, and the height. Now if the status is dying, we have a built-in dying method, and if the status is dead, we have a built-in dead method. And here you can see those in action. If the die percent is greater than or equal to 1, which means it's fully dead, we set the status to fully dead. Otherwise, we do the update, which is just updating the die delta and die percent. Now fully dead, there's no code in there just yet. You can override this and perform any action you want to use. Now the collision, there's no method in there as well. You just override, or there's no code in there. You can just override those, and whenever there's a collision, you just call one object dot collision and pass it another object. Now the die, this is what you want to call when you want to eliminate the object from the game. Instead of just removing it, you just say object.die, and if it's reached its minimum health and it got hit one final time, you just call object.die, and if it's active and the time span is 0, you just set it to dying. If it's not 0, you set it to dying. If it is 0, you set it to already being dead. And draw, you simply, if there's no texture or sprite batch, you do not draw, but if there is one there, you can draw. Now I added useful comments. Sprite batch has to be between begin and end calls on the draw, and you can see the other comments in there as well. And when you go into the game1.cs, you can see we have a replay screen actually. Let's go in there. We have GameplayObject Player. We need to initialize that, and the constructor, and in the initialize we just set the player.position is equal to new vector 2, and we just make it the center of the game window. Load content, we just call player.texture is equal to content.load. The player texture we have all grown fond to. The update, we call player.update, we pass the game time. And draw, we have to use begin before we say player.draw, then we have to end it. So that's a pretty simple way of doing things. You can build upon that, or just create a derivative that will build upon it and go from there. Next tutorial down, 2 or 3 tutorials down, we'll see a clickable gameplay object, we simply make a derivative of gameplay object that we call clickable gameplay object, and we can perform click actions based on their sort of mouse input and where the mouse is. So stay tuned for that tutorial, and next tutorial we cover the mouse, and then tutorial after that is a clickable gameplay object. So stay tuned for the mouse tutorial.